Now, I hope you've been able to hear me. I just realized it wasn't on the AirPods. And so what we ended up doing is really diving into what it is that he was looking for, what was going to make him happy, and realized that there was not much that he could do in his current role. He tried a lot of different things, but underneath this desire to switch was a lot of fear. He hadn't looked for a new job in years. He hadn't updated his resume in years. Where did he even start? Would another company even want him and his skill set? After we worked through all that, of course, he arrived at the conclusion that yes, he would. And it was then that he started a conversation with another company that he was very excited about. And as soon as he found that confidence and that momentum, he had an offer. He had an offer from another company that would give him a promotion. He would allow him to hire a team. And it would also allow him to impart the impact that he really wanted to make. However, the money was not nearly as good as he was making at his other firm. So we spent some time on a negotiation strategy and put together the right wording to help him to go back and negotiate a larger salary. And guess what? He ended up getting a 6-figure signing bonus on top of a more favorable stock allocation. So things certainly worked in his favor after he just put in the time and the effort and really thought about what he wanted to do. So the same can be true for you. But let's figure out first if that's what you should be doing, if making a move and going to another company is the right decision for you, or if staying is the right decision for you and mitigating some of the stress. What are the things that you should consider as you think about staying for the money or leaving for a more fulfilling role? The first thing that comes to mind, thank you, Prashant. I'm sorry, I'm just seeing your note. Guys, LinkedIn Live is in beta, so there's some technical, I won't say deficiencies, but it's not as great as it will be here soon. And so please jump in if you guys need help. If you have questions, put something in the comments. I can see your comments. I just can't see you and who's on the call. So here are the things that you consider. Number one, how much stress is in your life right now, given the fact that you are in this role that is not as fulfilling as it could be, yet you're making a lot of money. How is the stress impacting you? I'm going to show you a slide about how stress can show up in your life, just so you can fully understand the impact that stress can have. Because in addition to not feeling good, there are some other things that certainly you'll want to consider. So just a moment, please, as I get this up for you. Okay. All right. So stress is not just in your head, and we all know how bad stress feels, right? I'm not gonna dive too into that. But in addition, stress can also lead to an increased amount of cortisol that is released in your body. And when there is an excess amount of cortisol in your body, that means that your hunger increases, your fatigue increases, you start to get more migraines, there's more hostility, your immune system is weakened, hypertension, acid reflux, your metabolism is decreased. All of these things can start to show up when you are dealing with chronic stress. In addition, when you have increased cortisol in your body, this is when it leads long-term to hypertension, heart attack, and stroke. So although it might just feel like you're pushing through on the day-to-day and the stress is there, it doesn't feel good. Also, I want you to just take a step back and think about how much stress is in your life. And if you're starting to experience some of these things, what the stress is doing to your body. So that's certainly an important aspect to think about, is your health. And if this situation is starting to impact your health, and how important that is as it relates to the money. Now, there's a flip side of this too, right? having a lot of money, accumulating a lot of wealth allows us to buy nice vacations. Allows us to put our kids through school, allows us to buy experiences that we wouldn't otherwise be able to have. It allows us to take care of sick family members. Freedom is a word that comes to mind as you think about accumulating wealth. So there's a lot of emotion and opportunity wrapped up into accumulating a high paycheck, and I don't want to undermine that, because that's important. And depending on your core values, that might be the most important thing. So here are the real questions to think about as you start to evaluate health, freedom, money, fulfillment, happiness. Of course, these are all important, but which one is the most important? So questions for you. How does your stress and unhappiness impact your life outside of work? What do the moments with your loved ones look like? The moments when you are with the people that you care about most in the world, how are you able to show up based on what's happening at work for you? What do your relationships look like outside of work? And are you able to enjoy doing the things that you want with this wealth that you're accumulating? Is that in fact letting you live the kind of life that you want? Now, there's a reason this is a tough choice, right? Because wouldn't it be great to have a high paycheck and also have a really fulfilling job? By the way, you can have both. That's what most of my clients end up with. Here's the question to ask as you start to cycle through, should I leave or not? When you flash forward to your deathbed, what will be important for you to accomplish? This is what starts to really put things in perspective. In addition, what do you want to be known for? None of us know when our last day on earth is going to be. We just don't. But it's important that each day that we spend on earth ladders up to the values that we find important and the impact that we want to impart when we leave. So ask yourself, what are your top values? What are your top values in life? Are you able to currently honor those top values? If the answer is yes, there's just a few things that are bothering me, it's likely that you'll be able to stay and make it work with some of the stress techniques that I'm going to give you that will help mitigate how this is impacting you. If the answer is no, if the job that you are in right now prevents you from honoring your top values, this is going to eat at you over time. This is something that is really going to cause regret down the road, and it can be very, very difficult. So with that question, spend some time thinking about that. When you look at a difficult challenge in life, whether it be, should I stay in my job? Should I buy a new house? When you start to look at it in the lens of values, that's when you can start to get some clarity that you might not have otherwise have seen. And when you start to live your life where you're completely focused on honoring your values, that's when you're really going to feel at peace and you're going to feel happy about what you're doing. Let's say you've done all that work and you've analyzed and you've decided, yep, okay, I'm ready to leave. Let's talk about some negotiation techniques that can decrease the financial burden of leaving. So I told you about my client where we had a negotiation strategy that ended up allowing him to negotiate a six-figure signing bonus and a more favorable stock allocation. That is a real outcome that you can find, particularly when you're getting to senior executive levels. By the time you get an offer, they have gone through a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of interviews, a lot of thinking to identify you as the right candidate, and they want you. They don't want to go back to square one and start looking for somebody. So they are very motivated at that point to hire you. Plus, if you've been with another company, big brand name company for a long time, you're a very attractive candidate. You've learned some world-class techniques that could very much benefit another company. And so it does make sense to negotiate to make sure that it makes sense for you all around. According to Forbes, 70% of managers expect a salary and benefits negotiation when they make a job offer. So just know, even though you get this job offer that you really, really like, even if it isn't as much as you're currently making, most managers are expect a negotiation. So the starting point is not always the end point. Now, what I'll have a lot of clients do at this point is they're just so happy that they're leaving their misery behind, and then they put in all this hard work to figure out how to get their resume together and network, and finally, it's like this job is in their hands, it's at their fingertips. They don't want to negotiate because they're so scared they're going to lose it. But 70% of managers expect a negotiation. A really good way to go about this and to frame it is to say, I am thrilled about this opportunity and I am so excited to work for you. When I start, I want it to be with no regrets so I can 100% focus on the task at hand, because I'm going to be extremely dedicated to you in this position in this company. With that being said, as I compare packages, what I'm leaving at my past company versus what you're offering me, here's what I need to get me to a confident yes. And that's when you just lay the packages out side to side and say, here's what I'm making, boom, 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 boom. Here's the delta between my offer and what I'm leaving. If you can make me whole on this or exceed this in a best case scenario, and usually this comes down to the lost stock opportunities as you're leaving the last company, that's where the largest wealth accumulation is. Companies can often make up for that in their offer. So whether that be in an additional signing bonus, which is much easier than an increased stock allocation because they don't need board approval for it, or going back and getting a more favorable stock allocation, having a partial ownership of the company at a senior leadership level is very normal, and actually makes you more motivated to do a good job because the change that you drive directly impacts your pocketbook. So that makes sense all around. So some things to think about if you do decide that you are going to leave, and you start looking around and want to make sure that you're compensated fairly. That is a great negotiation technique to leverage. Now let's say you decide to go the other route, and upon reflecting, decide, you know what, I really do want to stay here. And in fact, I had a previous friend who did this. She thought about it, and even though she really hated her boss, and 9 times out of 10, it's usually a boss that's the reason you're thinking about leaving. I don't know if anyone can relate to that. If you can, please type in the comments if you feel comfortable. But as she started to wrap her head around this, where she landed is, me continuing to work here for another 6 months means that I can pay for my sister's surgery. And that's worth it to me. She also knew there was a light at the end of the tunnel, so it wasn't like she was going to end imminently. So she decided to stay on and actually left about 6 months later. A client that I worked with also came to me, and she was working in the museum space and had been at a senior manager level, wanted to get up to a director level. And that's really hard in the museum space because there's a finite amount of opportunities. It's not like corporate. And so she was really struggling with this because she really wanted to get promoted, but she actually loved her job. She just thought she'd hit a glass ceiling. In addition, she was a female of color, so that was even perceived more difficult. So what we did is we started to unpack what was at play, what she was unhappy with, and also what she was happy with. Now, what was interesting is as we started to reflect on what she was happy with, this is where things started to shift for her. Because often when you're in this space, you spend so much time thinking about the things that you're unhappy with that you forget to think about the things that you are happy with. And just by flipping that script and flipping that perspective, that can really help bring you around full circle and start to look at the glass half full. She decided to stay, and through our exercises realized she actually had it really, really good, but she was just uber focused on this one thing, this lack of getting promoted. But after she realized that everything else was really good, she made peace with it, decided to stay on. A year later, she got promoted. So this stuff is really powerful. This stuff really works. If you do decide to stay, There's a lot of different things you can do to help you reframe the stress. That's the first one that I shared with you, is start to think about what it is that you like about this role instead of spending so much time thinking about what you don't like about it. The more you dwell on what you don't like about a situation, the more you're going to hate it and the more you're going to focus your time and energy there. That's going to suck you dry. So if you decide, hey, you know what, I'm going to stay, the money's good, try to reframe your experience and catch yourself when you're in the deep depths of it. Also, try something that I call a sandwich technique. So we all control our calendars, especially now that most of us are still remote. You are in control of your calendar. So in the morning, first thing when you wake up, I encourage you to incorporate some kind of a practice into your morning routine before you grab your cell phone, before you check your email, before you get into a state of, oh my gosh, I'm already behind. I have so many things to do. Set the tone for the day. Now, this can be a gratitude practice. This can be a manifestation exercise. For some people, this is praying. Whatever it is that helps you remember all the good around you, give thanks for what is in your life, and helps you more thoughtfully enter into the day so you are in a proactive mode instead of a reactive mode. This is a great thing to focus on and incorporate into your day. Sandwich. So we talked about scheduling. Put some time in your calendar every single day where there's just a little bit of time for you. Now, whatever you can afford to schedule here, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. I know an hour is really tough, but let's say you can do 30 minutes a day during lunchtime. This is a great time to just be really mindful about what you do with that time. Do you go for a walk? Do you sit outside on your deck and interact with nature for a bit? Do you do a meditation practice? Do you get in some exercise? Exercise is so, so important to help us manage the stress. Something that you do for yourself every day to help you navigate a stressful situation. And then finally, the sandwich, the last piece of it is at the end of the day. A lot of us have a tendency to reflect on all the things that we didn't do well during the day and beat ourselves up. I used to do that when I worked in corporate America. When my head hit the pillow, I used to reflect on, oh man, what did I do wrong today? And it was super destructive. Instead, flip the script, flip the narrative. What are the things that you did really well today? And what was the best part of your day? So the more that you can try to impact the energy and the focus of your day, especially when you're dealing with a stressful situation, the easier it's going to be. Now, I tell you all this, but if in fact that you are working in a job that is consistently going against the grain of the values that you hold dear and true, you can do as many practices of these as you want, but it's likely that you're going to continue to be unhappy. So there's a range of what you can and can't continue to put up with. And the question is, where are you on that continuum? If you're lower down, and if we just need to reshift your perspective and your focus to things that are really enriching and motivating, start there. If that doesn't do the trick, then it's time to look at some bigger lifting. That would be a good time to work with a coach. So if this is something you're interested in, I'm going to put some information here about how to apply for a discovery session with me. I've seen so many people who are in this situation and they have come out on the other side of it happier, creating greater impact, even setting themselves up for greater wealth. And so just know, if you're in the thick of it, what this means is that there's a message being delivered to you. And it is your time to decide what you want to do with that message and how you're going to respond to it so that you can get yourself to a better place, whether that looks like leaving the company and finding another place that's a better fit for you, or staying and finding ways to maneuver around it. One other thing I forgot to mention is it's also a good practice, if you want to stay, to think about what is the thing that's really bothering you and how can you create change to get out of it, to a new boss, a new project, a new team. All of this starts with networking and putting together a networking strategy, which is something that I covered on LinkedIn Live last week and that you can find on my YouTube channel, Swim Against the Current. But these are all good things to be thinking about as you're trying to answer this really important question about golden handcuffs or job fulfillment. I'd like to invite you to join me if this is appealing to you, and if you have decided, yes, I'm kind of interested in going to find a new role. I'm ready. I am hosting a free masterclass on Friday, September 10th. It's going to be at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let me grab that registration link for you and drop it in the notes. Would love to have you there. And with this link, you can register, and it's going to be an hour and a half, action-packed. I mean, this is only 20 minutes. We're going to cover a lot in an hour and a half. And let's see. We are going to cover all the things that you'll need to know about how to land in a job that you love. And there's a lot that goes into it. So I hope you'll be able to join me. Does anybody have any questions before I end the presentation for today? I can't tell who's on. I would love to see you all. I would love to have that happen on LinkedIn Live, and I'm sure it will at some point. But just go ahead. If you've got any questions, type it in the chat. I'll wait a couple minutes and see if anybody's got anything that I can answer for you. This is a great chance. I've helped over 75 leaders transition into jobs that they love. So it's a great chance to get any and all of your questions answered. Please don't be shy. Almost, I wouldn't say anything goes, but almost anything goes. So please pop something in if you're still here. Okay, I'm going to take silence as a positive that everybody's good for now. I wish you all the best of luck. And if you'd like to find more, you can always go to my website, swim-against.com. And